Hey, how's everybody doing? Wow, what times we are in. I'm very excited because I have a trip coming up next week, and I just told them to pack also an outfit that's really, really celebratory, just in case Mashiach comes while we are on this trip, because I really feel like it's the end of days. It's the end of days. Oh my God, it's like, did you guys hear what Trump said the other day? I mean, right? It's like awesome. It's really, really awesome. So, on that note, I would like to draw some parallels, as usual, between the Parsha and our crazy times. But also, I would like to bring up a nice idea that we were learning in our Chavruta group, our learning group about prayer. Okay? So, this is the craziest Parsha, right? Like the Jewish people are leaving Egypt. And it's the beginning of the end. It's obviously the beginning of the redemption. And things are so great. And we just finished all the plagues, and the Jewish people are walking out, and no one is stopping them. And then they're traveling in the desert, and a crazy story happens, or right away at the beginning of the Parsha, the Torah says, Vayhi b'shalach Paro et ha'am. When Paro sent the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, V'lo nicham Elokim derech eretz plishtim ki karov hu. Hashem decided he didn't want to send the Jewish people straight directly through the Plishtim, which is actually weird because it sounds like Palestinians. But okay, I'm gonna get back to that in a minute. Hashem didn't want to send them through the Palestinians, through the Plishtim, Ki Karovu, because it's so close to Israel. And he was afraid that if they realized how close Egypt is to Israel, which it really is, it borders with Israel through Gaza, which is actually very, very interesting. I'm just totally figuring this out right now. Okay. Once they realize that, then as soon as they get to Israel, if things start being a little bit difficult, like Penny Nachem Ha'am Bir Otam Milchama. As soon as the Jewish people get to Israel, and maybe like they have a war there, they're going to realize, oh, you know what? Let's run back to Egypt. They're going to turn around and go back. Now, so many things are wrong with this verse. How could it be, Vayihi b'shalach Paro? How could it be that you're giving credit to Paro for letting the Jewish people leave Egypt? Really? Do you think it was Paro that helped you leave Egypt? Paro never wanted to let you go. In fact, it was, he was constantly saying, no, absolutely not. I'm not letting my people go. I'm not letting these people leave our, our area. No, it's not happening. So why do we give credit? The Torah gives credit. Vayhi b'shalach, when Paro decided to send the Jewish people out of Egypt, and then Hashem says, no, I don't want to take them the shortcut way straight to Israel, because then they're going to turn around and decide to go back to Egypt. What? They're going to forget everything about how terrible it was and how they were enslaved there for 210 years? What? They're going to go back to their captors? They're going to think that was fun? No, it doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense here. Okay. So Netivat Shalom says an amazing thing. He says, there's two ways of reaching some kinds of a redemption, some kinds of a salvation, okay, from a terrible situation. One is you can beg Hashem to save you, and Hashem does save you, okay? Or if Hashem just decides on his own, I'm going to save this person, whoop, it swoops in like a Superman, and it's called Itaruta de Le'ela. It's an awakening from above. And the person himself, in this case, doesn't really do any hard work. They don't fight their own Yetzer Hara. They don't fight their own inner struggles or temptations. They just are saved by God. Now, they might have some appreciation initially, but that sort of a salvation is not a full redemption or a full good end result to this problem, because it's just going to pop up again another time. Because you win the battle, but you don't win the war, because you haven't really exercised your muscles, your struggle muscles, your challenge muscles, your fighting muscles against the Yetzer Hara. You asked for redemption, and Hashem saved you. So, on the other hand, If you have something called itaruta dilatata, on the other hand, if you try on your own and you struggle and you take on action and you take on decisions like Agam Berger, this amazing hostage who came back to Israel, thank God, and she just talked about her emuna and how she tried to keep kashrut in captivity and Pesach, and she found a siddur. How could she have found a siddur in Gaza? It's like beyond. It's crazy. And she tells the story that she asked for a siddur and they laughed at her. You got to be kidding me. And then the next day or a few days later, one of her captors came to her and said, you know, your God must love you because I happen to have found this siddur in Gaza. One of the soldiers must have left it. Crazy. So, like, if you put in your work, your hishtadlut, your effort, then you will become a different person. Then you change yourself overall. Then you win the war, and then it's a full redemption. So what happened here in Mitzrayim? Obviously, the Jewish people, when they left Mitzrayim, they were not in any position to struggle and grow and work to receive this redemption. They just received it. It was like a gift. Hashem decided, I am swooping in, I'm taking my beloved, it's my chosen nation, and it's my son, my firstborn son is Israel, and no matter what they do, what they did, I'm saving them. But they had not yet done any inner work. So when they came out of Egypt, they still had that slave mentality. They still felt to an extent that they were in Mitzrayim and that they were dependent on Paro, that Paro could decide whether to let them go or not. So they felt, it came from the Jewish people's energy and their mental state, that they felt they were still under the control of Paro. So that's why they felt, Paro sent us out. Now, as soon as Paro also felt that energy, I kind of feel like I sent them out. And it wasn't a full salvation because nobody really did enter any inner work and any inner effort and investment and change. Paro also thought that just like I decided to let them go, Hashem let him think that just like he decided to let the Jewish people go, he can also go back on his decision and he can change his mind. And he did change his mind. He's like, oh my God, what did I do? I let them go. Let's run after them. And he runs after them. And then the whole situation happens at Kriyat Yamsuf. Now, wait a second. Back to the story with why he didn't let them go in a straight about way. Hashem took them in a roundabout way, in a more circuitous way, so much so that really almost the whole Red Sea thing didn't even have to happen. He took them around and around in the desert to kind of get them a little bit, messed up in their mind. They thought that they were going a pretty long journey. He didn't want to show them how quick and straightforward the way was to Israel. And in fact, took them around and around. So he kind of mixed them up or confused them. And then they came to the Red Sea. And then they saw the Egyptians running after them. And they were stuck in this situation where they didn't know what to do. And they're freaking out. Here's the Egyptians running after them. The Red Sea is in front of them. When in fact, they didn't even have to go through the Red Sea. They could have gone in a whole different straight about way without the Red Sea. So what did the Red Sea accomplish? What happened is that when they reached the Red Sea and they realized, oh my goodness, we're in a freaking out situation, they started crying and yelling to Moshe, Moshe, what are we going to do? We're going to die. We're going to die. You're not a good leader. We're going to all die here in the water, or we're going to be killed by, I keep saying that, Paro and his, terrorist organization are coming after us. What are we going to do? So what does Hashem say to Moshe? Matitzak elai. What are you yelling to me for? Daber el bnei Israel v'yisau. Tell the Jewish people to just move forward. Now, what did that accomplish? What happened there? If they were just going to cry out to Hashem and Hashem was going to say, sure, let me open split the Red Sea for you and you can just walk through, then they still wouldn't have done anything on their part, no putting in any effort, no change, no growth would occur. But since they were forced into that situation where don't cry out to me, you have nobody to rely on except for your own faith, your own trust in me, and you start walking through that water, and you have to start processing that you are now connected to a God who is taking care of everything. You have to realize it has nothing to do with Paro, nothing to do with Trump, nothing to do with Hamas. You're not dependent on any of these people's decisions. Those people are peons in the big picture of things. Hashem is leading you to your destination, and just trust him and just walk through the water. Okay? Just take risks. Just know that even if it's a crazy idea that Trump has, it doesn't matter if it's a crazy idea. And it doesn't matter if the other nations don't want to accept these terrorists into their midst, or these Gazan civilians who, with all due respect, are terrorists, right? It doesn't matter, because we don't have to be negative about that. We don't have to be worried, because Hashem is running the show. So take risks. Say yes, okay, thank you, Hashem, and move on. Take your step into the Red Sea. Yes, it's scary. But guess what? Hashem is running the show. And then you change as a person. You become a different person. And that is what Hashem was trying to teach the Jewish people here. And as a result, then you can now deserve a full-blown redemption, a full geula. Then you can receive the Torah in a few days, or then you can process throughout the next few weeks, which is called Sfirat HaOmer. In our calendar, we have the weeks, the 7 weeks from leaving Mitzrayim till we receive the Torah, where we can process. But we had to put in the action, and the action is going through the Red Sea, despite the risk, despite the fear. Don't be afraid. And that, getting over your fear and overcoming it, that is where the magic happens. That's where the Red Sea splits. That's where Hashem shows you that you can trust him and that he really is running the show, and huge miracles start happening. So that's really my one point about the Parsha. Vahi b'shalach paro et ha'am. And the truth is that then if Hashem had just taken them straight into Israel without any of this inner work happening, then they probably would have turned around within a few months or weeks or years and kind of forgotten that it was so terrible in Mitzrayim. They would have left because they hadn't changed as a people. They hadn't become independent. They hadn't done the inner work. So I just like my message to all of us. And this is the idea that I learned in the davening. We were talking about She'arim B'Tfilah, Gates of Tefillah by Rav Shimshon Pincus, and we're still in the chapter, which is lovely. It's just so awesome, called Rina, which means called joy. And it's about praying with joy no matter what situation you're in. And we were talking about today that, when you are kind of like down in the dumps, or when you're nervous, or when you're worried, and when you're fearful, it's and you're standing and praying from that position of fear and worry and sadness, you are actually doing yourself a disservice, because what you're doing is you're telling Hashem, listen, I'm a little sad about the situation, and you're showing Hashem that you don't quite realize how intensely amazing this relationship that you have with Hashem is. Can you imagine going to a palace of a king? You have a meeting with the king, and you go in and you're like, it's like, wow, it's such a celebration. You're going to meet a king, right? And in the palace, and there's joy in the palace, and there's a band, and there's instruments, and it's like everything is gorgeous, and you're just like, wow, this place is awesome, right? Could you imagine walking in there and you're just kind of like a little bit down in the dumps and oh yeah, I'm in the palace, but I'm also like really dealing with a certain financial problem and a certain illness, or a certain raising children's issue, and certain problem in my marriage, no. Just realize that you're in the palace of the king, and really this is like a time to focus on the intense joy that you have that opportunity to come into a palace of a king. Same is true, obviously, with us and Hashem. If you can just appreciate that each and everything in life, all your little problems are sort of like not not the main dish. It's not the main course. It's like a side dish. It's a really side issue. And it's almost become small in comparison to the huge, huge opportunity that you are involved in when you are speaking to the Almighty. And when you focus on that and when you're mindful of that, you have no other experience, no other feeling than joy. You know, it just has to happen. Now, not that there's no room for sadness. I understand sometimes we're sad, but it's almost like when you are about to pray, try and snap out of it. Try and realize that you're in a big picture here, and that big picture is being run by Hashem, and there's nothing to fear, and nobody to be afraid of, and no one has any power when it comes to God and His plan for the Jewish people. So that is something to be really happy about. And I just want to wish everybody a very, very special Shabbat. And I hopefully we will see more healthy hostages coming home. And I hope that we will be able to get out of our negativity, because I do understand that this whole hostage deal has a lot of fears and concerns associated with it because of the big price, the very high price that we have to pay for our hostages. But we have to realize that there's nothing to worry about because we are in Hashem's hands. Have a good Shabbos.